But I remember my aunt looking at us with tears in her eyes, and she said, baby, I got something to tell you guys. And my sister was going to school too, so she was already in there by the time I got in there. And she said, her exact words was, I don't want to say his name, but she said, he killed your mother. She's gone. And I remember not understanding as a kid, I was kind of mumbling to myself, like kind of questioning myself about it because I didn't understand. I'm just like, not my mom, I just saw her. We just left her. She's fine. Once he committed his crime, he propped my mother up against a trash can. He left and turned himself in. And he went to the police station and just walked in and said, I killed my wife. Yes, he was a pastor. And it also made me realize and come to a conclusion that you're living the same life your mother did. You're going through this with yourself this time. And I didn't want my kids to go through that because I knew how it felt being an 8-year-old little girl and how it made me feel. And I didn't want my kids to feel the same way or, have those same emotions growing up as well. So I decided to leave and I never looked back. I didn't take any clothing. I didn't take any furniture. I just left. I never looked back.
And you already had all your children at that time?
I did.
So you started over?
I did. From scratch. Started all over.
What did that journey look like?
It was very hard. I lived with my sister for a year in a 1-bedroom apartment with my 3 sons. We slept on an air mattress. I made it work. I worked 2 jobs. I saved my money.
Our guest, Crystal Williams, witnessed domestic violence against her mother when she was only 8 years old. What makes her story even more complicated is that the man responsible was a pastor, a man who publicly represented spiritual leadership. But Crystal did not come here to make this conversation all about herself. At 43, she wants to use what she witnessed as a child to advocate for women and especially for children who may be growing up in similar environments. What did you understand about domestic violence as an 8-year-old child?
What I understood about domestic violence as an 8-year-old was that not really much, I guess, as typical as a child could. Fear, nervousness, torment, wanting to hide, wanting to be sheltered, wanting to be protected as a child. That's pretty much what I can perceive of what I saw as an 8-year-old from my perspective.
To elaborate a little bit more, before I go into the follow-up questions, tell us more of what you witnessed. So our viewers, I know we talked about it, so the viewers would know exactly what the experience was.
Absolutely.
And what you witnessed as an 8-year-old.
Sure. Gut-wrenching screams late at night. I mean, just would catch you off guard. My mother just, waking up to her or eating breakfast or lunch or what have you, and seeing bruises and cuts on her face, on her arms, on her legs. Her trying to, on Sunday mornings as we're getting ready for church, trying to mask those cuts and bruises with makeup, trying to be cheerful and trying to be joyful, which I know that she was screaming and crying inside. Just mostly just seeing the abuse, the physical abuse on a day-to-day, and being fearful and not being comfortable enough to walk around in my own home because I was afraid that it wasn't just going to be geared toward her, but toward us as well.
Now, you already mentioned that you experienced the fear part, but just to follow up, did you understand then that something was wrong? I know that's what you were seeing, but did you know something was wrong at that time? Or was this like just normal?
I knew. I mean, it was obvious because she, was screaming and crying for help. But mostly it was just the uncomfortable feeling, I guess, as a child. But mostly just the noises and the sounds I heard on a daily that I knew something was wrong.
With what you witnessed, how has it affected your view when it comes to men?
It hasn't really affected my view when it comes to men. It actually made me stronger and raised 3 great ones. I have a 22, 20, and 18-year-old sons. I wanted to instill in them, number one, I wanted them to understand that I've always taught them to never put their hands on any person, any woman. If anger arises or you feel like that you're getting to that point, walk away. And if they gear you to a situation like that, then they're not for you. It's okay to walk away. But you be the man that you are. Be respectful. Your job as a man is to protect, not to hurt.
When you became a wife, because we talked on camera and you told me that you got married at 25.
Yes.
Did 8-year-old Crystal show up in that marriage?
Absolutely.
And how did she show up?
The fear, mostly fear because of insecurity from him, repeating, seeing the repetitive things that I saw growing up from my mom and living that same thing in my own life, living a verbal and abusive home as well. You know, trying to protect my kids from seeing certain things, which my mom also did. Feeling lost, feeling alone a lot. Trying to hide from my family the things that were going on in my life. The 8-year-old definitely came out. Just mostly fear, silence, afraid, apprehensive, as of what a child would be. You know, the typical things that a young child would feel.
I think when it comes to trauma, just any trauma, especially domestic violence, a lot of times we don't notice the similarities when we become adults. What we experience is now showing up in our lives. So I think that was really good that you were able to identify, to see that, okay, something needs to change because I'm seeing this.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that is a big key because a lot of times trauma repeats itself.
That's true.
In different forms.
That's true.
In different forms, whether we choose the guy that was like this person, much as we hated that person, or it can show up.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
What did healing look like for you?
It was not easy. To be honest with you, at the age of 43, I'm still healing. Healing is never a process that stops. You continue. I'm really dealing with the fact of the age difference from being 8 to now 43 and not having my mother from that short, from that long period of time. You know, my mother not seeing me graduate from high school. My mother not coming to my basketball games to support. My mother not seeing me get married and walk down the aisle. My mother not seeing me have my first child or children at all, or seeing them graduate from high school. She never got to experience that. So those kind of things set in me as anger in some ways. And I feel alone. I feel lost. No one knows you like your mother. There are some ways that you don't have to express words to your mother because she knows you as you being her child. And I feel like I lost that, and that's something that I wanted to experience. I wish that I could lay my head in my mom's lap and just cry and not even have to tell her any words because she already knows,
So for the viewers, so they can know, domestic violence led to you losing your mom at 8 years old. Not only did you witness it, not only did you experience that fear in a household where you had everyday life with your siblings, but you end up losing your mom behind domestic violence, which is so many times we want people to be able to walk away. Very few do. Very few walk away and become the healthy version of themselves. Very few walk away and turn their head. But in your case, it's the worst of all, which is you lose somebody behind it.
Yes.
With that being said, because I wanted the viewers to know that you lost your mom and that healing process. I know you said the gap between 8 and 43 and you're still healing. There was a lot of anger. Did you ever question God, why? Or why come this happened?
Right. Absolutely. For a long time I did. I was angry with God. I always pondered, and I know we're not supposed to ask God why, but I did. And I wanted to know, why did you take such a good soul? My mother was beautiful. My mother she loved to sing. She loved the Lord. My mother, I used to love hearing her sing, and she was very funny. She loved having fun with her kids, her nieces and her nephews. She enjoyed life. And a man that said that he loved God and he honored God and that he took those vows under God and he shut them all off. He cut them. He severed them by taking my mother's life. So yes, it made me very angry. And most of all, that he was a man of God. So yes, I was angry with God because why would you let someone that's supposed to be a leader under you take someone so precious, take someone that, that just only wanted to love you. And so, yes, it made me very angry with God.
Before I go to my next question, something you said about we're not supposed to question God. I was told that too, but a lot of times I know for me, prayer is just a conversation with God a lot of times, especially when I'm doing my prayers all day. Sometimes I go in and warfare and and I always try to give a reverence, but usually it's a conversation. As a person who has experienced it, that I have asked a lot of questions that I wanted God, I needed his direction. I needed the understanding behind it. And I just wanted, to say that. And I think y'all don't quote me on it. I mean, I don't remember the exact scripture, but then Jesus asked on the cross, why has he forsaken him?
Why has thou forsaken me?
Yeah, so I don't know where that came from, why we're not supposed to, they say we're not supposed to question God, but I think it's a personal relationship. And if you have a conversation with him and a question come up, ask it.
Yeah.
With that being said, as a believer, how is your experience or just trauma effect? I know you went into it about how angry you was, but how did you get to become, how's your relationship now with Christ? And how did you become the person you are now?
That's a good question. It actually drew me closer to God. I am in church regularly. I became a musician. I started back going to church at the age of 14. My bishop, God rest his soul, I give him much props, I guess I should say, in making me part of the woman that I am today. He was like a father figure to me. He saw the anger and he fought it. I went from cutting grass at the church to maybe having to sit down from playing because of my attitude, of I was angry or, but he showed me tough love, but he showed me love too. He came to many of my basketball games. He was very supportive and he just loved me through it because he saw the hurt and he consistently prayed over me and prayed for me. And he saw my talent. One of the talents that I have outside of at that time playing basketball was I'm a drummer and a musician, percussionist. And he saw my talent and he said, we're going to feel this, not the anger. Let's feel what you love to do. And I still am today a musician.
So what I'm hearing is that you had a mentor or a role model that poured into you, which God is so funny because he allowed him to be a male. I think God does that for a reason to help with the healing process. And it led you to where you are now with the music ministry.
Yes.
But not only that, you're still growing and healing to where you want to reach others.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes, so I am looking to starting a nonprofit foundation. It's going to be called the Angie B Foundation. And that is because my mother called herself Angie B when she was younger. And I want to reach out to women that are dealing with domestic violence. I want to be a motivational speaker and speaking about domestic violence and supporting women that are going through it. And not only women that are going through it, but it's not just affecting the adults, but the children as well. And I'm also currently writing a book. It's called A Daughter's Heart. And it is speaking on a perspective of an 8-year-old little girl who was scared and afraid and just telling her story from her perspective of what happened in the process of losing her mother. So it starts off with the abuse and it's going to lead all the way up until when we lost her.
Okay. And how has the experience affected your relationships or your approach when it comes to relationships?
It's made me very keen and looking into things and getting to know someone. So I'm still working on self, but I also want to connect with the person that's working on self as well. And we pour into each other. We reciprocate. That revolving door still flows. The communication and the love and the reassurance, whatever that is needed, we pour into each other and reciprocate that with each other. I want to see how a person handles the stress in financial situations and how they handle situations when they are, whatever they may be going through. I want to see how they handle those. But the biggest part of it is I want my person to be able to pray for me when I can't pray for myself. And I want to be able to do the same. I want someone to be able to pour into me, to look at me every day, even when I'm older, or even if I may gain weight, or even if I lose weight, to still look at me and still love me for Crystal.
And I want to kind of go back to your relationship and this healing part of you and everything, because it's beautiful.
Thank you.
When you talked about the person who done this to you or took your mom away, have you forgiven them?
Absolutely.
And what did forgiveness look like for you? How did you end up getting
Whew.
to that place?
It was a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of screaming and crying, a lot of questioning God, a lot of prayer in the questioning with God. Understanding that the biggest part was to understand that it didn't matter how mad or angry I was about the situation. It wasn't going to bring my mom back. I only have memories at this point, and I wanted to surround myself with those memories, the good memories. And I wanted to pour those memories into my children. And my children are very familiar. They know my mother very well because of the memories that I've instilled in them and told them about who my mother was as a woman and as a mother, as a sister, as an aunt.
And when you look back of your journey from 8 years old to the person you are now, what is the thing that you're most proud of that you overcome? Or that you're just proud of?
I'm very proud of the mother that I became, and I've raised 3 successful young men. I really feel like my mother would be very proud as well. One thing that I have taken from this whole entire tragedy of losing my mother is the best memory I ever had was her taking care of us. We never left looking, bad. Our hair was always together. We always had on nice clothes. We shared a lot of laughter and fun. One great memory of my mom was my mother could sound just like the witch from The Wizard of Oz, exactly like her. And she would do that sometimes when we would come in the home, and it would be so scary, and she would laugh and she'd say, "It's just me." And that's one great memory that I have. But those memories have helped me to keep processing and healing and knowing that she is okay.
What are the red flags that you would say for people to look out or women to look out for? Young girls in relationship, marriages. What are the red flags that kind of prevent you from being in a domestic relationship, or looks like it's leading to that you might want to get out?
Sure. So some things that I experienced in my childhood and my own marriage was I found myself, as far as my marriage was, I distanced myself from my family. I secluded myself from my family because I didn't want them to know what was going on. I wasn't happy. When you're not happy, you can't show it on the outside, right? So I didn't dress to par. I stopped wearing makeup. I didn't care. I didn't have any self-love. As a child, those signs were of seeing my mom, the way she dressed, it was a complete 180. So my mother loved dressing up, wearing makeup, looking up to par. And she went from that to wearing bigger clothes. And my mother wasn't a big woman. Wearing bigger clothes. She used to change her hairstyles all the time. She stopped doing that. The laughter left. It was just, of course, the signs were the bruises and trying to hide them with makeup, and her distancing herself as well from her family because she didn't want them to see the hurt and pain she was experiencing.
So before we move further, just to give more, before I ask any more questions, can you go into how or what actually happened a little deeper so the viewers would know exactly what happened with your mom? Please understand that it may be a little graphic, it may be very exclusive, it may be very detailed, but we need to know so people can understand the importance of why we're talking about red flags, why we're saying, hey, you need to get out. And I want them to understand that before I go further, in questions.
Sure. So I remember a little, not a great detail, but I remember us being late for school. This was February 8th of 1991. We had just moved to Tanner, Alabama. And I remember the night before, my mother was hanging wallpaper and she was helping me with my final project. Under the water, it was like under the water sea creatures. And I remember she came up with this great idea of putting salt in a bag, and we kind of taped some salt under the water for it to be the salt water. I remember that vividly. And we laughed about it, but I thought it was a great idea. The next morning, I remember us rushing out of the door because we were late for school to catch the bus. And I was at school for about an hour. And I remember a police officer coming to my classroom, and he asked for me specifically. And then my teacher, she was crying. I remember she was wiping her face. And she was like, "Baby, I need for you to come with me. Can you grab your things?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "Am I in trouble?" And she said, no, baby, you're not in trouble. I just need for you to go with this nice police officer. He's going to take you to your family, okay? And I said, yes, ma'am. And I gathered all my things and I went to the office, walked to the office, and that walk seemed like it was forever. I felt like we walked for a long time. And finally, we got to the office, and the principal was in there. My great aunt was in there. There was somebody else in there, but I don't remember who it was. But I remember my aunt looking at us with tears in her eyes, and she said, baby, I got something to tell you guys. And my sister was going to school too, so she was already in there by the time I got in there. And she said, her exact words was, I don't want to say his name, but she said, he killed your mother. She's gone. And I remember not understanding as a kid. I was kind of mumbling to myself, like kind of questioning myself about it because I didn't understand. I'm just like, not my mom, I just saw her. We just left her. She's fine. And I got more details as time went on and, as the week went on. But I remember going to my grandmother's house, and it was just a house of sorrow. I remember my grandmother screaming, my aunt screaming, my uncle ran. He was screaming. It was just torment. And it still hadn't set in that it was my mother. What made it set in was going to court and finding out the details. My mother was shot in the head, point blank range. He specifically called her name. She was making him breakfast. And when she turned around, he shot her point blank. Coroner, sheriff said that she didn't even know what hit her. So she didn't suffer, although I feel like she did, because later on, my brother still talks about her convulsing on the floor. Once he committed his crime, he propped my mother up against a trash can. He left and turned himself in. And he went to the police station and just walked in and said, I killed my wife. Yes, he was a pastor. And it was just surprisingly and shocking that a man of God who preached the word every day, had his own church, had a semi-large congregation, just decided one day to take it upon himself to take my mother's life.
And he didn't really have a reason, or did the reason ever come out, or why?
Later on, I found out. I'm not sure, but I have been told. I went and did some research on my own in my 30s, and I found out that my mother was building a case against him because of all of the things that happened and, her abuse. And she was going to take him to court that March. And she had a good case against him that he had to do a lot of time. So in my mind, I'm thinking he felt that if he found out about it, and I guess in his mind, it was, if I'm going to go to prison, I'm going to go to prison for something. And so, he took her life.
Behind this. So he was a leader in the community, a pastor. He goes to prison. Is he still in prison, or?
He's deceased as well.
Okay, he's deceased. You mentioned that you had siblings. How many siblings did you have?
I have one sister and one brother.
And what's the age difference?
We're 3 years apart.
Okay. As y'all move forward in the healing process, do y'all help out each other? Did y'all lean on each other for strength? What did your childhood do? Who did you end up, who raised y'all? Did y'all stay together?
Absolutely. So my wonderful sister, who I love dearly, she is like my best friend. She quit school. She was going to nursing. She was going to be a nurse at UAB. She quit school to raise us, going through some family issues that caused her that she needed to come home. And she raised us from 14 up until, I left the home of having my own children and getting married and things of that nature. We are still close to this day. My sister, my brother, and I, we love each other. Me and my sister actually live in the same complex. So we share meals and meal ideas. We talk a lot. She encourages me. I encourage her. She really is my best friend. And she is strong. She is a kidney recipient. So she had kidney failure about 6 years ago. She overcame that. She has a kidney, doing great, exceptional, wonderful. My brother's doing exceptional. He's working, being the man, raising his 2 kids greatly. We're doing very well for ourselves. And we continue to communicate and love on each other.
So that's good. So it sounds like family support is the key.
Absolutely.
To surviving trauma, especially
Absolutely.
something so tragic.
Absolutely.
Before we talked about, and you with the red flags and some of the stuff that you've seen in your own marriage, how did you know? When did you know that I need something different? when it comes to that self-love, or just knowing? I know you mentioned the self-love, and then, you know, saying just still learning that part. When did you know that it was time to leave?
It wasn't that I needed to know that I needed to leave. Well, there were signs that it was time to go, but it took me, to be honest, to black out and to lose myself and inflicting harm on him and making him to make me realize that that wasn't for me. And it also made me realize and come to a conclusion that you're living the same life your mother did. You're going through this with yourself this time. And I didn't want my kids to go through that, because I knew how it felt being an 8-year-old little girl and how it made me feel. And I didn't want my kids to feel the same way, or, you know, have those same emotions growing up as well. So I decided to leave, and I never looked back. I didn't take any clothing. I didn't take any furniture. I just left. I never looked back.
And you already had all your children at that time?
I did.
So you started over?
I did. From scratch. Started all over.
What did that journey look like?
It was very hard. I lived with my sister for a year in a 1-bedroom apartment with my 3 sons. We slept on an air mattress. I made it work. I worked 2 jobs. I saved my money. I bought a car at that time. That was my first car. And I saved my money and got my first apartment. It wasn't the best in the best environment, but I made it work. It was ours, you know, and I wanted my kids to have their own room and buying their first bunk beds and watching them sleep at night and pray over them like I saw my grandmother do for me. And my grandmother did raise me partially as well. And I hate I didn't say that. My grandmother raised me until she passed away at the age of 56. But it brought a sense of, it made me see how strong I was as a woman, that I could do anything that I put my mind to, and that things that I dealt with, the trauma that I dealt with in my past, it wasn't going to be the path of my life. And by that, I mean, I could have used my trauma of losing my mother to be an alcoholic. I could have used that trauma of, you know, prostituting my body. I could have used that trauma to be on drugs. I could have used that trauma to rage and hurt people and inflict harm and even kill people. But I didn't want that. I chose to have a better life for myself. And as I grew and learned more about domestic violence, I wanted to teach more people about it as an adult. And also, I wanted my sons to see strength, and that to see that you can do anything that you put your mind to, really. And to see someone that was hardworking and see someone that wanted to build a great life, not just for them, but for herself.
So the reason I'm asking these questions, because I feel like it's important for the audience and young people to know, yes, walking away can be hard, but it's not impossible, and it's worth it at the end. You start over. And I personally, you know, experienced this. So it's very touchy for me, and your approach of it or your experience is different from mine because you're coming from a child's view. And so I think it's important for the audience to know that children and how it affects the children. And they need to see that strength of you walking away. They need to see you loving yourself. They need to see you choosing you and caring, and know, because when they see that, it helps them grow and be better.
Absolutely.
It takes away from the hardship of trying to strive and become, you know. I want to talk a little bit more on the red flags.
Sure.
Because the similarity as far as the self-love. My experience when it came to domestic violence was, you know, I didn't know, I felt like I deserved it. I felt like this might have been what love is. And it wasn't until I started putting in the work and lean, you know, on God to know I deserve better. I don't deserve this. We don't deserve, me and my children. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the red flags? And it's more for the viewers to know, if a young lady is watching, if a child is watching, you know, what to look for, what do I need to do? What's that first step look like?
Absolutely. So first things first is, I would say, if you have a close relative or friend that you depend on, and you know without a shadow of the doubt that they're going to be there for you, let them help you figure out a plan in escaping and getting out for good. And why I say for good is because most women turn their backs and they go back. go back to the situation that's hurting them, that's harming them, not just them, their children.
Why do you think the women return back to the abuse?
Good question. I think a lot of women turn back to their abuses because it's an insecure security, if that makes sense. It's an insecure security. Why I say that? It's insecurity within themselves because they feel like they're never probably going to find anyone else. You may be later in life in love, and because that person is abusive, you feel as though you may not find anyone else. So you just stay in that place. Or it may be, why I say security is because, you're settled, you're comfortable, you're complacent, you're there, you may be paying bills together. You may be, may have some joyful times sometimes. And, the children are comfortable there. You don't want to pull your children or, out of that home, or for them to have to go to different schools, and, just changing the life.
Afraid to start over.
Afraid to start over. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think women should also know, because we talked about it off camera. When you have trauma, if you have a household, and I think you talked a little bit about it earlier, but when you have a household, as a child, that you're seeing that you have the fear in, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have the unstableness, and you see all the toxic stuff. When you get older, you're wanting and you yearn. I know this was my journey. You're yearning for love, right? And so when you find that strength to walk away, most men will try to lure you back with gifts, with false promises, what they will or won't do. So I wanted, the women to understand that's a part of it too. And you have to be able to choose you over whatever they're offering.
Absolutely.
Because it's not worth it.
Absolutely.
It leads to, like the tragic of you could lose your life.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, just materialistic things that should overcome you or overwhelm you into turning yourself back. Change is action, just like love is action. Mm-hmm. So change should be an action. You should see change, not just in the materialistic of flowers and candy or, a hug or a kiss. What else is there? Mm-hmm. Do you see them trying or walking away maybe instead of hitting you with fists or abusing you with objects? Are they trying to seek therapy? Are they trying to get help to find out why they're that way? Most men and women. So it's not just men that abuse. Women abuse as well. So I just want to put that out there. But, with that being said, are you seeking therapy? Are you, is there communication? Are you sitting and talking amongst each other on trying to pour into each other and finding out if you are even equally yoked to even still be in a relationship? There has to be some steps in seeing change in order to want to continue to be with a person in that manner, which I don't recommend, because I personally think you can't change a person in that way. And I really believe my mother thought that she could. I really thought my mother could love that anger out of him, and she couldn't.
I definitely think a lot of times women think, or people think they could change people, but people have to change for themselves.
Absolutely.
You cannot change them. Kind of touch back or piggyback on that women are abusers. Most women abuse verbally. And so, you have to be careful what you say with your tongue.
Absolutely.
Do it.
Life and death is in the power of the tongue.
That's it. And another thing I want to point out for women to look for is, when a guy is trying to intimidate you. That could be a sign, intimidation, lack of accountability, jealousy. They're quick to blame, again, not taking that accountability. They are very controlling. I think that's the key, controlling. And sometimes control and protection can look similar. So you have to know, the difference.
Absolutely.
Of it. But controlling, having intimidation, mm-hmm. them trying to be very possessive. A lot of guys are possessive. A lot of mm-hmm. women confuse that with love. Oh, mm-hmm. he just, really won't know. He's very possessive. That's the first sign of going into control.
Absolutely.
Those are signs to definitely look for.
Yes.
When it comes to it.
And another thing I want to give reference to as well that really stuck with me and from my teenage years up into my adult. But as an adult, I really understood it. Remember the saying of being raised in a Black home as what goes in your house stays in your house. that has affected the Black culture entirely, and especially in those situations. It's because children grow up with that concept and they feel as though they can't get help because of that. They feel as though, my mom told me, we don't talk about things in our home, or my dad say, we don't talk about things in our home. So we don't talk about those things outwardly to anybody. Even if my mom is going through this torment of every minute of the hour of the day, I still don't talk about it because I was raised like that. And that is absolutely wrong. I don't teach that concept with my children. I never did. If it's something that's bothering you, you feel as though you want to go talk to a counselor about it, tell them, but talk to me first.
Now, to me first.
Definitely come to me
if
first.
Something that you're feeling, something that you don't like that I do, let me know.
Yes.
Communication is definitely key.
Absolutely. And I am so grateful that I have open communication with all three of my sons. They are not ashamed to come talk to me about anything. That's because I created that home for them. I wanted them to be able to be free in talking and not hiding even how they feel, whether they're depressed or nervous or upset or whatever it may be. I didn't want them to feel like that they were secluded or felt like there wasn't an open floor to talk and discuss those things. And I really feel like that has grown outwardly with the Black community. And I hate to say that because children are, I really feel a lot of abuse is still affecting children in that manner. It's because they're afraid to talk about it because they were raised and they were propositioned to not do that. And it has affected that, especially in domestic violence cases.
Absolutely. I never liked that concept or the statement, what goes on in our house stays in our house. A lot of times that comes from the view of being swept up under the rug. Nobody wants to talk about it and all this dirt is piling up and then people wait till people die and all this stuff and you got all this trauma that needs cleaning up.
Absolutely.
Speak on it. Say how you feel.
Yes.
I think we should make it a habit of definitely asking our kids how they feel about certain things.
Absolutely.
Abuse comes in all forms.
Yeah.
Domestic violence is usually more physical and can lead to death, but you have mental abuse, you have sexual abuse.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's definitely important to keep that communication
Absolutely.
open. I wanted to ask you, if a man or a woman was watching us right now sitting in an abusive relationship and didn't know how to get out, what would you say to them?
I would say to you there are various ways of getting out of that situation. There is a code now that you can call a pizza place and tell them you want to order a pizza. And if they ask you what kind, they will pretty much know what you're speaking of in keywords. I don't know verbatim, but there are specific words. There's a domestic violence hotline. Like I said, reach out to that close person that's to you and tell them what you're experiencing and going through. Confide in them like you confide in them about all other conversations and let them know, hey, I'm being abused. I'm being hurt. I don't want to live like this anymore. I'm afraid for my life. I'm afraid for my children's lives. I want to get out of this situation. And I actually want to be an advocate in that way as well, which I am working on right now. I want to help women get out of these situations. I don't want another death. I don't want, another child seeing their mom being lowered into the ground for good. I don't want children having to see their mothers, in a casket. It's very traumatizing. It's something that I truly remember. If I don't remember anything else, I remember seeing my mom that last time in her casket. And I don't want that life. I feel like loving yourself and seeing yourself better, it's hard. Listen, I'm telling you, it's hard. But what you can do all things through Christ that strengthens you. Get out of it. Take that first step. If you take that first step, God is He's going to lead you in the way that you should go. He is not going to leave us. He has never left me. I am the product of that. Yes, I was angry. Yes, I hated God. But God also showed me that those things that my mother went through, I really feel like He had to remove her from that situation, not in the way that I expected, but He had to remove her because she wasn't going to leave. It was always going to be a repetition. And I know that other viewers may feel as though I'm wrong by saying that, but it's the truth. It's my truth. And seek help in the best way that you can. Keep an open floor. Have family talks with your kids. Listen to your children. Your children know more than what you think they know. Talk to them. Love on them. But most importantly, love on you.
That's definitely key. I would say definitely love on you. Choose you. Know that it's not your fault.
Absolutely.
A lot of times, a lot of abusive relationships, a domestic violence relationship is stem or it grows from something that was planted from childhood. And know that whatever you went through, whatever that trauma might have been, whatever it was, is not your fault, And you have the right, the power to choose you, to love on you. And if you don't know how, start with some affirmations. Again, reading your word, grow a relationship with God. He's always going to be the key for me.
Absolutely.
What do you want people to understand the difference between surviving or making it through each day?
Surviving for me is, at this point in my life, was being healed and healing and understanding that no matter how hard I cry, it's okay to cry. But I had to understand that it wasn't going to bring my mother back. And as I said earlier, was just keeping her memories alive. That's a part of my survival. And telling her story is the biggest. I want to shed light in helping other women. And I feel like that's creating a great survival for myself and helping others get out of these situations. I'm sorry, what was the other question?
I was just asking the difference between getting through each day or just surviving. For myself, day by day, it would be prayer. I actually don't even go day by day. To be honest, I go minute by minute. By daily affirmations, prayer, looking at myself in the mirror and speaking affirmations to myself and telling myself I love myself and, taking myself out on dates, dating myself, encouraging myself, finding outlets to, take my mind away from certain things. I think survival is how you make it, how you create in the lifestyle, I feel. And day by day, it's just keeping that lifestyle going, watering it. It's just like having a plant and a plant, it dies, right? Or trying to grow a plant and you're pouring water on it. You're nurturing it every day. You're making sure it gets that sunlight and you're making sure that it gets that water. You're nurturing it for it to blossom, right? That's how we should treat ourselves in survival and day by day. Survival is starting a positive effort, and the day by day is keeping it by watering it each and every day so that you can grow and blossom into the person that you want to be. I totally agree, and I can relate to it. It's definitely just showing up and, like you said, watering, but it's just something simple as just choosing you. You make the first decision to walk away and do what's best for you. Whether you have children, you can do it for them, but make sure you're doing it for you.
Absolutely.
And love on yourself.
Absolutely.
Do you have any closing remarks?
Just the last thing is, remember that you cannot love anyone if you can't love yourself. Love yourself. God bless.
And I was just going to say, your mother didn't get a chance to tell her story, but you were able to be a voice and tell her story.
Yes.
And we're hoping that by you telling her story and sharing your experience, that it does a life-changing for whoever the viewer may be. Definitely take away those red flags, what to look for, and more importantly, just choose you and love on you. And when you love you, you will expect other people to love you correctly. And that's major.